Rick's going to narrate our walk around the outside of the house.
We're on the north side of the house, and a lot of work has been done to this place over the decades, scores of decades, and it's not all original. In fact, I don't think other than the logs anything's original at this point. And this porch was added probably in the 80s, maybe the 70s, who knows, we don't know. And everything on the porch is period perfect, in other words, place perfect. Every chair is made of 100% wood. All the furniture, a lot of stuff is from local trees and whatever, and was handmade by somebody that knew what they were doing. And then we have here the fireplace, which is the centerpiece of the whole place. And it stood there since 1928 or 29 or 27, nobody knows for sure. And then just in front of the fireplace is the Minisa clapboard, and it said Minisa since 1927 or 28, we're not sure. And then to the right, well, gracing the entire grounds are birch trees, which are special to this area, becoming more and more rare by the day, as more and more fudgies think that they belong here instead of as residents as opposed to visitors, or owners as opposed to visitors. And then we have the dinner bell, which I will show you how it works. It'll wake the dead. And then if you turn around, you'll see Porch Lake itself, and the many trees that have, actually these trees are not native, they're native, but they're not from the time of the cottage, because they're all younger than the cottage. There's a few of them in here that are old, but I don't know that many, if any of them were here in the beginning. And then right in the middle of the view of the lake is the flagpole, which is of great significance to a lot of people. The dock never existed until the 80s or the 90s, because this was a sailor's lake and there was no need for a dock, because you put the boat in, took the boat out, and you went and raced it, and that was it. It really wasn't a joy boat, it was a racing boat, it was a single purpose boat. And then we have a sign that says don't mow beyond this point. Everything here is done by hand. There's nothing, the machinery, not much use for it here. And then the windmill over here is Mary's, and I forget exactly, I don't know the whole story of it, but it's a special thing to Mary for sure. And it's made out of Lincoln log toys, whatever those are called. Or
Tinker Toys.
Tinker Toys in that style. It looks like it could use a paint job. Nothing lasts forever. And it's spun continuously ever since we got here a week ago. I'm sure it's spun continuously for decades and decades. Across the lake, you can see the beginning and the end. It's soon just going to look like any other lake anywhere. And the color of the lake is not. It's nothing special today. If you were to see it on another day, it would be bluer than blue, absolute blue.
You can get about 5 different shades of blue out of one vision of the lake when you look at it. It's beautiful. Deep turquoise and aqua. Oh.
And then the boathouse is over here. All this building, well, it was probably the boathouse and the hardware store, the pet and boat. And we go in the other side of it, and there used to be railroad tracks that would go, railroad ties and tracks that would go from the door all the way down to the lake, and the boat went in and out with each and every race. And I don't think there were many races that were missed over the decades. And I don't know when I would come here in the 70s, and the boat was still here. There was still a boat in there. It was a wooden boat, and not competitive by today's standards by any stretch of imagination, but it was just like the cottage. It was the bedrock of the yacht club. And the yacht club would never have been built if the Hibbards and a few other of their friends didn't want to be sailors and take advantage of the lake for what it is, not for what it could be, which is now a cesspool for jet skis and motorboats.
Do you want to walk over to Grandma's?
Yeah, we can open it. All right.
I'm here.
So this is going inside the boathouse, and you can see Minisa C.F. Hibbard on the placard.
That was a bad pan.
And then on the inside of the other door, championship years were starting in 1929 and going through 1954. And it looks like there were 4 Minisa boats that they named it 1, 2, 3, 4. Very common practice in the boat business, or the boat ownership business. This boat right here, this rowboat, I thought they made this for Torch Lake, which they may have, but I also saw pictures of other rowboats on Lake Huron at Gratiot Beach, which this could be one of those boats. I mean, it's a very old boat. I don't think it'll float. It'll float like a log, but it won't float like a boat. And so that's that. And then there are 2 other smaller sailboats that have survived. I think they're both butterflies. At least one of them's a butterfly. And I don't know what they are, but they're racing boats. And one of them I don't know what they are. And then you come down this way. And here's the workbench. This is where all the repairs were done for the house. And if you look down here, there's probably all kinds of antique fixtures and parts and screws and nuts and bolts, whatever's down there. And then Charlie's daughter Mary, who was Charles Hibbard the second or junior, she lived in many places over the years, she and Gus. And I don't think they lived in Maine, but I know they lived in Massachusetts, and those are probably their license plates from over the decades, or or whenever they came to live here. And there's beds and whatnot here. Let's go out this way. Is it on?
Still on.
This boathouse is why there was never a dock. There was never any need for a dock because the boat went right in the water, the boat came out of the water. The docks are for temporary things. This is a permanent home for the boat. It got better care than most of the kids who came to visit. And now we're going to go a little bit to the south, and we're going to go to my grandparents' place. My grandparents were married in 1931 or 32, something like that. And Aunt Josie was moving back in time a little bit. There was Josie and Catherine Armstrong. They were sisters, grew up in Detroit, were part of Detroit society, and Josie Armstrong married Charles Hibbard the first, which is the one that built Minisa in the first place. And they own 1,000 feet of frontage of Torch Lake right here. And what's being sold, what has been sold is the remaining 300 feet, which is still a lot of lake frontage for any lake, but especially for Torch Lake. And their wedding present in 1931, 32, 33 was this 100 feet of property, and there's a stake that points out the 300 feet. I saw it just a minute ago. I don't know, must be back there. Oh, there's a stake right there. That's where the Acklin.
Sorry for the bad video there.
That's where the Acklin property ended and the Hibbard property started, or vice versa. And this is what my grandfather began in 1964, 65, something like that. I was just a little kid at the time. And built this place, which still survives and thrives as a fine cottage. And it's on its third owner right now. And it's largely what it was in 1968, 69 when it was constructed. And my grandfather passed away in 1966 or 67, never saw the place completed. My grandmother took care of it, and she did a wonderful job. And this is how my cousins and me and my brothers came to know Torch Lake in any detail. We came once in the early mid-60s and met Aunt Josie one time, and never saw her again. She passed away in the early 70s, 1970s, and we went to the Minisa cottage, but this was just wild. There was nothing here. And so this was constructed in the mid to late 60s, and it lives to this day. I don't want to say it's fallen a little bit on hard times, but it used to look better. The people who own it now, the Grady's, Mrs. Grady passed away in the last year, and Mr. Grady has not felt too compelled to come back too often, and so it hasn't got the love that it deserves. And it's been modified over the years. There are skylights and things like that. Those were things that didn't exist in the 60s. It's all nouveau stuff. But my grandmother took very good care of this cottage, and she loved it, and we loved it. But ironically, despite its charm and its character, I'm not sure I ever slept inside the cottage, because my object was to sleep in a tent, and I would sleep right over there in a little clearing that used to exist. There's a cottage there now, which didn't exist until recently. Like I said, there's not much left of Torch Lake that's not been overrun by the fudgies. But all these trees were here. They still continue to be here. It was very natural. And I see, you look across the lake, you see all the McMansions and the Mick this and the Mick that, the boats, the motors, everything. The Hibbards, the Acklins, the people who are the real Torch Lake people believed that they should make minimal to no impact on the lake. The lake should be there for their use or their enjoyment, not their use, but their enjoyment, and they should not interfere with it. It should continue to be the grandmother of the whole place. Unfortunately, there are those who don't know that. Ignorance reigns supreme in our age.
The buoy that's in the picture right now is the one that the Kaiser kids all have their names on the rock holding it up. Mm-hmm. So that's very important to them.
I can remember my mother, she would say, go out back and get something out of the... I says, that's not the back is by the lake. And she would say, oh no. She corrected me, and to this day it's one of those, is there a right side in and an outside to your underwear?
Lake people always know the front is the water.
Right, but the front should
They don't
To us
call
city
it.
kids, we thought it was on the street side.
They don't call it lake backage.
There's been people around here. There's some trampoline this on the plant.
Probably us.
This driveway was always here. The garage was added after it passed on. The house passed on, and my grandmother passed on probably. And
This is
there was never any heat here, so that boiler thing or fuel tank was never there. This porch was added on. It was just, and the chairs, the seats. The doors were always wooden doors, local material, at least natural material. And now they're aluminum.
There's the inside, kind of dark, but
Nothing to see.
not much. Gonna stop it, Rick. Unless there's something you want to point out here.
No, that's it.
That's it.